Hey, lovely. Quick update from me. The Menendez brothers case was back in court for a status hearing yesterday, November the 25th. And it was no surprise to me that it's been postponed, i.e. the resentencing hearing that was scheduled for December is no longer happening. It will happen on January the 30th and 31st. And Judge Michael Jesic, interestingly, said that he wanted to get up to speed with the case, which is curious because he set that resentencing date for December. And he also said that the incoming DA, Nathan Hochman, also needs to get up to speed with the case because he wants an opportunity to weigh in, which is no surprise. But I do wonder whether Nathan Hochman and Judge Michael Jesic know each other. They're both Republicans. Nathan Hochman was a prosecutor, so surely they've met each other before, so I just wonder about that. There's a question for me. And what was also interesting was that Joan, Kitty's sister, testified yesterday. What an incredible woman she is. I mean, to be going through this in her 90s and her whole life course, to be upended by this, just absolutely horrific. But she made the case again about the abuse, the horrific abuse that Eric and Lyle suffered at the hands of Jose Menendez, and that they couldn't just leave because they were controlled and terrorized by Jose. And she also shared that Milton, her brother, was abused by their father, Andy. So that was a bombshell, and it's clear that there was abuse in both sides of the family. So, and then, of course, we see it play out with Eric and Lyle. And that context is important because it further confirms the abuse, that Kitty was abused, as was Jose. And then how do they behave to their children when they haven't had any of that work done? They've done no work on themselves. So also what happened was Terry, Jose's sister, testified, and she's got breast cancer, she's unwell, so it takes tremendous strength to do that, to fly here and to testify. Now, she also testified in the penalty stage of trial 2. Did you know that? And that's something I've recently learned from Rob Rand, and apparently it was just tremendous impact in the court and to the jurors. And she talked about the abuse but pleaded for her nephew's lives. So they want them to be released. They've suffered enough. That's what they're saying, not just Eric and Lyle, but the family too. And I really think it's so important coercive control is mentioned, because victims can't just leave. And in fact, it's codified, coercive control, in the Family Law Act here in California. I work with Senator Rubio on that. So the game has changed. When we talk about abuse, we should be talking about this insidious abuse where victims become entrapped. And if you think that it takes an adult female victim 7 times to successfully leave the male abuser, well, that's an adult. Just imagine how hard it is for a child. Even teenagers, no, they can't just walk out the door. It doesn't happen. And so we have to think about coercive control. And I did write to Mark Garagos and Cliff Gardner about coercive control, just putting it on their radar, because the game has changed, the world has changed. And look, Sally Challen was abused from 15 years. She was 15 to 56 and she was abused, and she killed the abuser. And that was a murder conviction that then on appeal got changed to manslaughter, and she was released from prison. The Crown Prosecution Service decided not to re-prosecute her for manslaughter. So all I'm saying is that there are laws for coercive control, and it should be talked to, because it's far more corrosive and insidious and damaging to your psychosocial development. And for children, they become entrapped, they're dependent, but they still look for love and validation from the abuser. And that's everything that I've seen regarding Eric and Lyle. So that's the latest, and we've got to keep talking about the case, or I will do. And please do listen to my series on Crime Analyst. It's very detailed and in-depth, and I didn't expect to find what I did, but I advocate for those who don't have a voice. And it's important to spotlight coercive control, which often when there's coercive control, there's sexual violence and sexual abuse. And that's what we've seen. That's what I've seen in this case. And 53 witnesses, teachers, coaches and family members testified to that in trial 1, but they weren't allowed to in trial 2. And it is important to talk about the coercive control and the sexual abuse, but also the trauma that occurs because of that abuse. And it is relevant. So listen to my series on Crime.